Hello everyone, I'm here today to do my April wrap-up, or I finished 9 books in April. So before this month my TBR in Storygraph was 38 books and now it's 29, which means I haven't also added much to it, which is great. And also my ancient DVR has gone from 20 books to 16 books, which is also great because now it means that if I read 2 books of my ancient DVR a month, I can finish it by the end of the year, which it's, I don't know, it's very satisfyingly mathematical. Out of the TBR that I had set out for myself, I have read everything in there except from Raising Her by Chloe Dalton, which I'm currently reading. It was not a mass, but yeah, I wanted to read this one and I didn't. And also the 3 books that I have left for my Work Week prize, I mentioned that I would like to, but probably I would not be able to have time, and that was the case. I didn't have time to finish those either, so they will move to my next month's TBR again. The first book I want to talk about is actually one that I didn't finish, is NW by Sadie Smith. I was reading this when I finished last month, and I just DNF'd. I was just not vibing with it for some reason. So it was a very busy month. April was an extremely busy month, and I just didn't have the patience to continue with it when I was not enjoying it. I was not invested in any of the characters, and so around 100 pages in, I decided to leave it at that. It's a pity because I like some Sadie Smith books, but this one was not the one. I also don't like some of them, so I guess that's in this category. The next book that I read is Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley, and this is about, as you can think of, it's about capitalism, and it goes through like the whole history of it, what we could do different, and a little bit of wider context. It's a very well-researched book and a very comprehensive book, I would say. But also there were things that I didn't love about it, like the introduction to it is very condescending, I found. Like it assumes that you know a lot less than you know, or at least I knew, and so I didn't like the tone of that. But then as the book progresses, that gets better, and we do look into a lot of things that I actually didn't know about, and I learned things. And also it does look at other ways of doing things, how people have been doing other things to capitalism in certain places, and it's not just this two sides, either capitalist or communist. There's a lot more nuance to that, and this book goes into that, so I appreciated that. So yeah, I enjoyed this enough, but yeah, it was not groundbreaking for me or anything. It's not something that I have never come across before, but it is like a good compendium of those kind of ideas here. The next book I read is Ædnan. I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, by Linnea Axelsson, and this is a Swedish epic novel, I guess. Not novel, but it's written like an epic, if you can see. And it's divided in 3 parts. The first part is on the 20s. It's following the Swami people in Sweden, and so the first part is just them kind of living their herding life. The other part is more about how the Swedish government kind of took control of those lands, and they built a huge dam, for example, and that was done by Vattenfall, which here it's usually considered a like super clean energy kind of company. And in this book we see like their history was not so clean, but yeah, they build dams and they try, like they are taking their land and their livelihoods away from them. And then in the last part we are kind of in modern day, and there is this woman that is trying to ask for reparations and try to get recognitions of the Swami people. I think it was really well done at the beginning. Like the first part I was like, okay, we are following people treating cattle, that's not super interesting, but as the book goes on, you do get a lot more from from the current issues and the current views of Swami people, and that brings the first part much more into context as well, and to show kind of what they lost. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'm very happy I read it, and yeah, I will recommend. The next book I read is Rebirding by Benedict Macdonald, and this was the last book I had to read for the Wainwright Prize winner list for conservation. And this is basically trying to explain why a lot of birds are not in Britain anymore, and kind of it relates it mostly to the disappearance of natural areas, and that doesn't only mean there are more cities, but it also means that in the rural areas, British people are trying to make everything a lot neater and a lot less wild in a way. There is a photo here that kind of explains. So this is like all overgrown and like nobody's taking care, and this is how it looks now. So even if it's the rural areas, like the grass is very well cut and there's no plants growing anywhere else, stuff like that. So that's like the main point of the book, and it does give other examples of other countries in which this is not done so much, particularly in Eastern Europe, and how the birds are all happier there, and also what the importance of birds are, and other like their relation with other fauna and flora in the areas. I think it was well done, but I think it was a little bit reductive at parts. Like, it is really about British birds in many places, and I was hoping for a little bit of more expansive view, which in some senses we do get at parts, but not so throughout the book. So I still think it's a good book, and I do like the points that he's making, and I have learned more about bird and conservations and stuff like that. So I'm glad I read it, but I do think that it would have been a better book if it was a little bit more expansive in the views that it was presenting. The next book I read is Agent Zoe by Clare Mulley, which is part of the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction for this year. I'm reading the shortlist, and this was one of them. There will be another one. And this is about a Polish spy, basically, during the Second World War. And she was an amazing woman. She traveled a lot undercover to get information from one place to the other, and even after the war she was very adamant that their story should not be rewritten. The Communist Party tried to rewrite the story of these people that tried to help the Allies during the war, and she would not let them. And I really like that part of her personality of, no, you're not messing up with me. I also like that especially at the beginning, when she's kind of starting to get into being a spy and learning and stuff, she does make mistakes, and she makes blunders, and that felt very relatable, which yeah, I really like that was included in the book. So I think it's a good book. I think it's very well written, and I'm happy it exists. For me personally, I'm not the most interested in World War II stories, and I think actually that was very well shown by the fact that the part that I enjoyed the most was when World War stopped and the aftermath of all of it, because there is a significant part of the book that happens afterwards, when the Nazis disappear, or the Nazi government disappears and the communists take over. There is a significant part about that side of history as well, and I did enjoy that a lot better. I think it was like World War stories are a little bit samey all of the time, and sure, now it's a woman that is the spy, but it's just very samey and it's not my thing. But yeah, I think it was well written. It was just not what I normally read. The next book that I read is There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak, and I this is about several people in different timelines. One is the 1800s, and there is one in like current, a couple of them in current times, and it also jumps from the River Thames in London to the river somewhere in the Middle East, Tigris. Yeah, the River Tigris. So we follow mostly three perspectives, and they are all kind of related to water. And also related to this one poem. So there is Arthur, who is like a very smart kid in London. He starts working on a printing press, and eventually that takes him to the Tigris for this poem that was there. Then we follow, what's her name? Nareen, who is a Yazidi girl around the river Tigris. And then we follow Saleka, who is a hydrologist in the Thames. And it kind of follows several things. So it follows the struggles of the Yazidi people. It follows the issues with climate change and water, and it follows like just general poetry and stuff. It is a very whimsical writing style, and I enjoyed that. I think the storytelling was very nice and the characters were engaging, but somehow these books didn't come together for me completely. Like, I think the jumping around of perspectives, they didn't have enough in common to justify there being so many perspectives, and it almost feels like there should have been two different books or three different books. I mean, Nareen we don't follow that much. We mostly follow Arthur and Saleka. So I feel like those are two different books that have been put together here. So I found that jumping around a bit jarring, and that took me out of the stories. But I think the stories were good, and I think the characters were good. It's just like it didn't come together for me. The next book I read was A Thousand Threads by Neneh, which is also part of the Women's Prize for Nonfiction shortlist. And this is a memoir of Neneh, who is a singer and a poet, songwriter. And she's from Sweden, but so her mom is Swedish, her dad is from Sierra Leone. So she's mixed race, and she does talk a lot about. She talks about growing up mixed race, but she also talks a lot about the music industry in not so much in a music industry thing. I mean, it's part of the book, but also in the like how the community around her was built around music. So we do have a lot of what I think this book does the best is looking at female relationships in her life. So she has a very strong bond with her mom, but she also has a very strong bond with her stepdad, which we also explore, and she has a really strong friendships that last a lifetime, and they are connected through music. These people connected through music, but those are like she's very good at highlighting how important that was in her life, even almost more than her romantic relationships, which I found very interesting. She doesn't focus a lot on her romantic life. I found that the beginning, when she was younger, that was especially well done, and as she grows older, she starts talking more about the music and less about her life, and also the pace goes faster. So like the first, I don't know, half of the book is about the first 18 years of her life or so, and then the rest is like the next 30 years of her book, of her life. So like for example, when her children started being born, like we will jump from one chapter of the kids being born to them being like 8 or 9 years old. And so I think that the pace was a little bit too fast for me on that part. I don't know if that affects anything, but yeah, I found that part a little bit fast. But overall, I think it's a very good book. I also liked how she highlighted how unusual and hard sometimes it was for her to be a working mom. Just any working mom, especially music is especially difficult because it involves a lot of traveling and a lot of other things that are not super child friendly, but in general, like integrating kids into working life was another conversation that I found very interesting in this book. But yeah, I think she's a very fascinating person and a very interesting memoir. I have heard a couple of her songs since, and I can say I'm not into her music, but the book was good. The next book that I read, I don't have the copy with me because I lent it to my mom, but that's Las Viudas de los Jueves by Claudia Pineiro, or The Widows of Thursdays. And this follows a very close community, very rich community in Argentina near Buenos Aires. And these people are kind of like country club people, you know, rich people that live in a very gated community, and many of them don't even live that community in their normal lives. And we follow, like, there are three bodies that have been found in a pool, and then we jump back into like the building of that community. We follow a few people in the community and see like the relationships with different people and how messy they are, and like the kind of things they worry about and how messed up everything is under the surface. And then it kind of ends with like what actually happened with those three dead people. And of course, all that comes before gives context of why that happened. I don't think it's Claudia Pineiro's best from what I have read from her. It's still enjoyable. I think it was very interesting to see the dirty laundry of the Argentinian high society people. And I mean, I think we all know how not perfect those people are sometimes. But I think that in this case, the building of the tension of those three bodies was not done as good as she has done that kind of thing in other books. Like it was mentioned at the beginning and it was mentioned at the end, but in the middle we're just following these people that we know they died because it's said in the beginning, but if you don't remember from the beginning, it's kind of not reminded and not building the tension. So yeah, I don't think it was her best in that regard, but I think it's still a good book and I still enjoyed it. So yeah, I would still recommend, maybe not to start with, but if you like Claudia Pineiro, this might also be a good book for you to read. Then the next book that I read is the book of Disappearance by Ibtisam Azem, and this is a Palestinian book, and it mostly follows what would happen if Palestinians would disappear from one day to the next. We also follow Alaa, who is a Palestinian, and his story. He is from Jaffa, and his family was displaced, and he talks about how hard that was. But we mostly follow Ariel, who is his neighbor, Alaa's neighbor, and kind of after the disappearance of Palestinians, what's happening there, all the things that people are thinking and saying about the disappearance, and he at the same time is trying to find out what happened to them. And yeah, it's not sort of a mystery. We never find out what happened to the Palestinians. It's more a thought experiment about what would be the reactions of people if that would happen. Like some people were happy because they are currently actively trying to kill Palestinians, so that would be the result of that. And some people were outraged. Some people were in all kinds of conspiracy theories. There was a lot of fear as well that we're planning something to retaliate from the actions of the Israelis. A variety of things. I think it was very well done, and even though there is violence in the book, obviously, I think it's not as violent as and heavy as, let's say, something like Minor Detail. So it is a little bit more approachable, but still it makes you think a lot about the situation of Palestinians and how they are treated. So I enjoyed it for that. And then the last book I finished is Disobedient Bodies by Emma Dabiri. This is a very short book about how shaming our bodies has been used in Western society to control people and devalue them. So it starts by pointing out that this way that we have to think about body and mind as two different things, that it's like a binary. It's not. It shouldn't be the norm. It's not like a given. And this was invented so that you could either be smart or you could either be pretty, especially for women. And how then we make assumptions like pretty people cannot be smart and smart people cannot be pretty, and like you have to choose one faction. You either are of the mind or you are of the body, and if you are of the body you can either be pretty and people think you're shallow, or you can be like big and then people shame you for it and also think that if you are all body you cannot really have a mind, stuff like that. And because she is part Yoruba, she also talks about racism, especially in Ireland because she's Irish, but also like when she traveled to the US, how different that was for her. But she also talks a lot about Yoruba culture and how that there it's very different. The way to approach beauty and the way to approach our bodies is very different, and how the point that this book is trying to make is that it's not enough to include diversity in the amount of bodies that are acceptable. It's more about getting rid of the idea that there are acceptable bodies and unacceptable bodies. So inclusive things like having plus size models doesn't solve that, because even plus size models are a certain kind of plus size, like they are curvy and not all plus size people are curvy, for example. And so we have to like completely dismantle the system that tells us that our body is something to be ashamed of, our body is something that is for debate, like it's the inner beauty should come first and the outer beauty should come second. And she also talks about in, for example, I think it was Yoruba communities or Ike communities, I'm not 100% sure, there is this idea that a woman asking another woman if they can do their hair is a sign of friendship and a sign of community building. So if I ask someone, can I do your hair, that means that I am willing to put a lot of my time into making someone else beautiful, and so I'm lifting that other person up, and so that is given as a sense of community and a sense of friendship and a sense of uplifting each other rather than taking everyone down, which is mostly what Western society does. And so it's a much bigger topic than just we should make the perfect image more inclusive. It's a bigger discussion than that. I found the topics really interesting. I think Emma Dabiri is a very interesting, very smart person. I, however, think that this book was too short. I would have liked some more depth in some of the concepts. There were some things that were just mentioned and in passing, and then never explored in depth, and I would have liked to explore some of those things in depth. So that is what I can say about this book. Like, it was really, really good, and it's very thought-provoking, but also I wish it was longer and bigger and more in depth. In terms of my TBR for May, May is going to be a little bit more of a chill month in terms of things that I have to do outside booktube, but also in terms of books. I don't have that much going on. I'm almost done with all my prize reading for the season. I still have Raising Her to read for the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction shortlist, and I think I might also read the International Booker winner when it comes out, but that's about it. And then in terms of my challenges, this month Chinaman by Shehan Karunatilaka is both the oldest book in my TBR and the longest book in my TBR. So I only have to read one book for that challenge, and it's not even that long. We are getting into the part in which I don't have that many long books in my ancient TBR anymore, so this one is 395 pages, so very doable. And then in terms of the Buzzwordathon challenges, so the cover challenge was a book with eyes in the cover, and I think this was targeted at eyeballs, but I don't have any books with eyeballs in the cover that I want to read, so I went for Not a Novel by Jenny Erpenbeck, which there are photos and those faces have eyes, so I'm gonna count that. For the word challenge, it's a book title that includes two, and that could be with one O or two O's. I went for Too Fat, Too Slutty, Too Loud, which is a feminist non-fiction about, yeah, how women are treated, and they are never good enough no matter what we do. So yeah, that's the one that I'm gonna read for that. I have to go to the library to pick it up, but yeah, that is the one that I'm planning to read. And then there are another 3 books that I would like to read. As I said before, I did not manage to read my my 3 Warwick Prize winner Warwick Prize long-listed books that I wanted to read that month. So now that I don't have so much going on, I'm going to do that. So these are the 2 that I have left that I will be reading this month. And then there's one more book that I want to read that I'm not sure if I'm gonna review here or not, but when I read Private Revolutions, there is one character or one person in that book that talks a lot about education and different approaches of education, and one she talked about was positive discipline, and so I did get a book about positive discipline because I thought it sounded good and I wanted to learn more about it. It is obviously a sort of self-help non-fiction book, so I'm not sure I'm gonna review it or not, but yeah, I wanted to learn more about it, so I got this book, and we'll see how I go with it. And then after that, everything is open for whatever comes. I think I would like to read some of the Warwick Prize long-listed books for 2024 as well, but we will see how we go. There's no set list or anything, so this looks this doesn't look too bad. Plus, Too Fat, Too Slutty, Too Loud. I think that doesn't look too bad. And as I said, May is not as busy as April was. April was crazy. I had like 3 different travels going on. So yeah, I'm going to Germany at the beginning of May, but that's about it. So yeah, those are all my thoughts and all the things I read in April and all the things I'm going to be reading in May. Let me know if you have read any of these books. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments, and until next video, bye!